In this video, we're going to go over completing the square method under quadratic functions. So how do you get to solve a quadratic function using completing the square method? Okay, so we have some practice questions to help us understand that. X squared minus 10x plus 24 is equal to 0. Okay, so basically the way it works is the first step is to take the constant the other side. So you have x squared minus 10x being equal to minus 24. Okay, so now that you've taken the constant the other side, of course we don't necessarily take it the other side, we had the additive inverse on both sides. Okay, and that's how it gets the other side. Okay, the next step will be to replace the b part, the middle part. Okay, so before we get to replace it, we need to find the half. So what we have is we have negative 10. What is the half of negative 10? It's going to give us what? It's going to give us negative 5. So basically we have x squared. So now what we need to know is, as we get to replace, we're supposed to replace the half. So it will be plus the half, which is negative 5. But it's supposed to be squared. And this term is supposed to be introduced on both the left hand side and also the right hand side. So basically if you're able to get to this point, then you know how to go, then you know how to do the completing by the square method, because that's where it ends. Okay, so now how do you get to do it now? So it's just a matter of now simplifying. So at this point you are expected to correct the squares. So it will be x minus 5, then the square will be outside, is equal to minus 24. Negative 5 squared is 25. Okay, we can now have some space there. Okay, so what basically do we have? So we now have x minus 5 squared is equal to, the other side we have negative 24 plus 25 is 1. So we want to find the square root on both sides. So we have x plus 5 equal to, so the moment you introduce the square the other side, it will be plus or minus 1. So the square root has cancelled out with that 2 there. So there it becomes plus or minus. So now x is equal to 5 plus or minus 1. So x is equal to 6, x is also equal to 4. So that's the way you solve a quadratic function using completing the square method. Another practice problem there. Okay, so we have 2x squared plus 12x plus 5 is equal to 0. Okay, so look at the b part there. What do we have? We have a 12. So the half of a 12 is what? It's basically 6. So we have 2x squared plus 6 squared. Then the constant goes the other side, negative 5. So we are going to add the half as well, squared. So we have 2. Okay, so basically this one is a bit different. It's different. It doesn't work that way. Whenever you're dealing with the computing by a square method, you need to make sure that the coefficient of x squared is 1. Okay, so you divide by, let's divide by 2 throughout. We see what we're going to have. So if we divide by 2, 2, 2. So we have x squared plus 6x plus 5 over 2 is equal to 0. At that point, what can we do? Okay, so now we get to the same step now. So only get the half of the b part when the coefficient of x squared is 1. So now we have x squared plus the half of 6 is 3 squared. So this can go the other side to be minus 5 over 2. So we are also adding the 3 squared. So we now have x plus 3 squared is equal to, so negative 5 over 2 plus what? Plus a 9. So negative 5 over 2 plus 9. So the easiest way of adding fractions is multiply that one by a 2. It will be what? It will be 18. So you have negative 5 plus 18 over 2. So 18 minus 5 is what? 18 minus, it's actually a 13. So we have a 13 over 2. Okay, let's try to show that. So we are saying we have x plus 3 squared is equal to 13 over 2. So to find the value of x, what do we do? So we have x plus 3 is equal to plus or minus the root of what? 13 over 2. Okay. So at that point we have x being equal to negative 3 plus or minus the root of what? 13 over 2. Okay, so at this point you can get your calculator. So the two possible solutions that you expect is negative 3 minus that and also negative 3 plus that. Okay, so you can finish it up using a calculator. Okay, so basically this is what completing the square method is all about. Let's look at one more extra question on the same. Okay. So now let's say we have okay, let's do this one. Let's say we have 3x squared plus 12 minus 2 is equal to 0. So basically there we need to make sure that the coefficient is as well a what? A 1. So what do we do? So we divide by a 3. So we now have x squared plus 4 minus 2 over 3 is equal to 0. So what's the half of b? Of course, we're supposed to be x there. It's minus 12x. So 4x there. Okay, so what's the half of 4 there? So it's 2. So the constant goes the other side. And we're supposed to add the 2 squared on both sides. Okay, from that point, we have x plus 2 to the power 2. We've combined and have a square outside. So we have 2 over 3 plus 4. So I've said the easiest way of adding fractions. Multiply 3 by 4. What basically do you have? You have a 12. 12 plus 2, 14. So a 14 over 3. So we now have x plus 2 squared is basically equal to, okay, so we have 14 over 3. So to find the value of x, we find the square root on both sides, and what we're going to have will be x plus 2 is equal to plus or minus the root of 14 over what? Over 3. So we have x is equal to negative 2 plus or minus 14 over 3. And you have two possible solutions. One which can be added to the 2 and one which can be subtracted from the 2. Okay, so I can simplify that using your calculator. Okay. So then the last question what we can look at, we can say let's have x squared minus 3x is equal to negative 1. So this is already in the form that we want it to be. X squared already has got a coefficient of a 1. So what do we have now? So what we have is, let's find the half of what we have there. So the half is negative 3 over 2. So we have x squared plus our half is negative 3 over 2 squared. We add it to the other side as well, negative 3 over 2 squared. So at this point you have x minus 3 over 2, then you square it outside, then negative 1 plus 9 over 2, because negative 3 over 2 by negative 3 over 2, we multiply it by itself, the negative will go away. Okay, let's try to move on. So at this point we have x minus 3 over 2 being equal to negative 1 plus 9 over 2 is the same as 9 over 2 minus 1. So 2 times the negative 1, it will be a minus 2. So you have 9 minus 2 over 2, which is basically a 7 over 2. So you have a squared that side there. So at this point, our value of x is going to be, so when this goes to the other side, it will be 3 over 2 plus or minus the root of what? 7 over 2. So we have two possible solutions of x, 3 over 2 plus root of 7 over 2, as well as 3 over 2 minus root of 7 over 2. So this is all about it when it comes to computing the square method, solving a quadratic function using computing the square method.